Hi, Sam here at Model Chili, and here I have Revell's Star Wars Republic Star Destroyer, and it's a re-release of an older kit, which I think came out just after Revenge of the Sith. But this is a rebox, and it doesn't actually say what scale it is, but let's open it up and have a look inside the box. Okay, so we have the instruction book, first bag, so the two main halves of the hull, and a large bag of all the other parts, and just a tiny sheet of decals there. Now just a quick look at some of the individual parts. I won't go through everything, but just have a look at some of this really nice moulded detail on these parts here. They're all fairly clean, no flash or anything. All the moulds look really crisp and neat. So our first impressions, it's looking really good. And then just the underside there. And then some of the side panels. Some really nice fine detailing along there, some of the hangar bays, doors. And again, I'll try and get as close as possible. Got some really nice detailing in there. And it's for the tower superstructure there. And yeah, so I'll start building. One really cool thing I love about when kits do this is that you've got two pieces almost identical, but they can be flipped. So if you weren't paying attention to what part numbers they were, you could mistakenly put one of these in upside down. Except the pegs match up with the slots there, whereas they don't on this part. So there's a mismatch. And Bandai do it a lot. I'm sure other kits do it as well, but it's just a really nice touch just to make sure that those of us with our short attention spans don't put it in the wrong place. Okay, so that's a majority of the building complete. I still need to put on the laser cannons there. But what I'm going to do first is prime it up with just my usual Tamiya surface primer. And then start painting. And now with the primer layer down, I'm going to apply a black shadow base coat. Now that the shading layer is done, I'm just going to start applying the grey base coat, for which I'm using Vallejo's pale blue grey, which, even though it says it's blue grey, it's just quite a nice light medium sort of grey, and that should serve well as the base coat. So that's the first round of base coat done, and you can see it kind of looks a bit patchy and washed out in certain places, and that is deliberate. It's one of the reasons I put down the black shading layer underneath, so that I can spray over this with various thicknesses and concentrations and get a sort of weathered look without actually having to do much. And it's even more highlighted on the bottom here, the various panel shading that I've managed to get just by applying a bit more paint in certain areas, and the black undercoat kind of takes care of the rest. And I might do another sort of tidy up coat on the top, just some areas that I think need a bit more paint. And one thing I forgot to mention also is that the kit doesn't actually come with a stand, so there's nothing to place it on. So what I've done is drilled out a hole here for a Polar Lights round 2 universal dome stand. So that's just a plastic dome with a metal rod, and I've drilled out a hole just big enough so that can slot in. And so that takes care of the stand. And yeah, so I'll just continue painting. And for the red panels, I'm using Vallejo Model Colour Red, and it just thins down a bit for the airbrush. Okay, so the red paint is done, and I've just given it a light gloss coat just to help seal in the paint. I find that sometimes this paint can rub off and chip off as I'm working, especially with a hands-on model like this. So I find that just by putting a light gloss coat on it, just sort of guarantees that the paint won't scuff up. And right along the bottom as well. And these fleet markings were just masked off in the general area according to reference photos, and then just getting strips of masking tape and just eyeballing the intervals. So it's not 100% perfect, but it's close enough, I think. And I don't know if you can hear that. There's a piece of plastic rattling around. I think that just came off when I was drilling the hole. Now it's stuck in there. And yeah, so now it's time for some detailing. So I've just got a bit of Vallejo USAF light grey, which is quite a bit lighter than the base coat. And I've thinned it down with a bit of thinner, just so it's nice and free flowing. and then just dabbing it on some of these raised areas, just for a bit of flavour to the main colour. Now to simulate the panelling, as you can see, the red is just painted on these main panels, and the gaps in between are the main hull colour. So what I've done is I've got the base coat and watered it right down so it's almost a wash consistency, and then dipping it into the recessed lines, and hopefully all goes according to plan. It will move along the lines and do most of the work for me. And for the engines, I've just painted the end caps with Vallejo gunmetal, just hand painted. And I'm going to do the main engine, the rest of the engine, with the same colour, just heavily washed down, just so it's not so thick. And it'll just make the underlying grey just a bit more metallic. Okay, so most of the detailing work has been done. Painted various different shades of grey for the panels, put the turrets on, the decals, and some of these window sections, and given it another gloss coat, so now it's ready for some weathering. And some of the lighter detail, like along the side and the hangar bay, I'll do after the weathering, just so it stays nice and bright. And just a quick look underneath, so there's just a bit of panelling there, not quite as detailed. And to start off with the weathering, I'm going to do some blaster marks. So this will be depicted at the Battle of Coruscant at the start of episode 3. So I'm going to put lots of scorch marks on it. And I've got this new weathering set, so it's got the black for the soot, and snow and rust, which I won't be using. This is mainly for tanks. But this should be good for some carbon scoring. So to use this, it's fairly simple. You've just got a little applicator here with a soft tip on the end, one end, and a brush on the other. So you just wipe a bit of the colour you want, and then just rub it onto the model, and just in the shape and the pattern that you want. That's already run out. And moving straight on to the wash, which I'm going to be using Vallejo's dark grey. And I'm skipping the chipping step, which I'd usually do next, because looking at some of these reference photos, chipping doesn't really seem to be a big theme. Especially at this scale, you're not really going to notice it much. Here's a closer look. So there's a lot of colour variation, texturing, but not a lot of chipping. So they're generally pretty well kept, except of course in this battle situation. So yeah, so moving straight onto the wash, and I'm just going to apply it to the whole model, and then take care of it once it's starting to dry. And I've left the wash to set overnight. It's not completely dry, it's a little bit tacky, but it's not moving with my finger. So now I'm just going to apply a bit of airbrush thinner on this cloth. I think this is a cloth that comes with computer monitor cleaning sets. And I just dab a bit on the end there and just start wiping it off. And I did realise as soon as I started putting the wash down that this is going to wipe away all the battle damage that I did. I should have done that after the wash, but that's fine, I can just reapply it. And so this will get off a majority of the wash that's not in the recessed lines, and other parts that are close to the raised edges that I want to remove, I'll just do the same technique but on the end of a cotton bud, just to get to the hard to reach places, and hopefully it'll start cleaning up. And so that's all the wash cleaned off, well, most of it. There's still quite a bit in some of the detailed areas. And underneath there. And I've also painted up some lights and some details along the sides there. Just fairly simple. And so now it's ready for the final flat coat, which is Tamiya flat clear spray can. And I always do spray cans out in the garage where I've got a bit more ventilation, so that's why I never record it. And for the stand, I've done something a bit different and painted it up, and I've gone for it depicting Coruscant, which where the battle took place. And that was just done with stenciling some circles. Was actually just using this roll of masking tape, which is kind of bendy, so I could get it on the dome. And then I just traced around with this white pen, just to get some general lines. And then just dabbed some yellow and orange paint over the top to make all the lights. And then just use masking tape to do all the arms that spread out. So it's fairly simple but pretty time consuming. But it was just something quite nice to put on the display base. And here it is with the flat coat down and all complete. So I'll just do a quick overview of some of the detailed parts. And yeah, I'm quite happy with how it's come out. I decided to keep it quite simple, just to basically get it done and finish it before Christmas. But I could have spent a lot more time detailing it up with extra colour, extra lights, even some extra scratch building detail. But like I said, I just wanted to get it done really. But let me know what you think in the comments, or leave a like or dislike. It was a really enjoyable build. Only took an afternoon to build it, and then I spent a week of on and off work painting it up. And I'm quite glad the battle damage was wiped away in the end, since the wash came out a bit stronger than I was expecting. So with that over the battle damage might have been a bit too much. So I've just decided to leave the battle damage off. And I'll just smooth it around so you can see the engine detail. That was just sprayed with blue and then sprayed with a bit of white with the airbrush, just to simulate the glowing effect. And I'm quite happy with how the stand came out. It was just a simple idea really, and gives it that little bit of extra detail. And yeah, so let me know what you think. And I'll just actually run through some of the products that I've used, well, all of the products that I've used, since I promised one of my commenters. Okay, so for the primer, I used Tamiya's Surface Primer in grey, and all of these black topped bottles are Vallejo Model Air range, specifically for airbrushes. So black was for the shading undercoat, pale blue grey was the main coat, light grey was for some of the darker grey panels, gunmetal for the engines, blue for the engines, and then white for the engines and some of the lights, then medium yellow for the lights, Ferrari red for more lights, and this is Vallejo model colour with the white lid, so that's basically for brush painting. So I used this for the red stripes and I had to thin it down for the airbrush because it's quite thick. So that's the difference between the white model colour and the black Model Air. It's just these are for the airbrush and these are for brush painting, just in case you didn't know. And Vallejo dark grey wash for the wash, and then Tamiya's gloss for the Tamiya's clear for the gloss coat, and flat clear for the flat coat. So hopefully that was useful, and I hope you've enjoyed watching the build. And if you did or didn't, thanks for watching anyway, and until next time, take care.